Another strange thing happened on my channel. I uploaded a new short and YouTube did not test it. No spike, no probe, just a quiet graph. But something else was moving, an older video, and that raised a different question. Why would YouTube ignore the new upload and test the old? This is YouTube Field Notes. I uploaded a new video, and like most creators, I expected to see the usual pattern. A small testing spike, a few early impressions, maybe a handful of views coming in quickly. Just enough movement to tell you the system had noticed the upload. But nothing happened. The graph stayed flat, and when you see that as a creator, the first thought is almost automatic. Did the video fail? Did I do something wrong? Was the topic bad? Was the timing off? Those are questions every creator asks before deciding any of that. One thing YouTube teaches pretty quickly is patience, because the platform rarely answers questions immediately. You upload something, you watch the numbers, and sometimes the response comes hours later, sometimes days later. So part of the process is just learning to wait. Those are the questions every creator asks. But before deciding any of that, I open the real-time performance screen because sometimes the answer isn't in the upload, sometimes it's somewhere else on the channel, and that's when something unexpected appeared. This is the real-time performance screen, and if you look closely, the activity isn't on the newest upload, it's on this older video here, the one that already had been sitting on the channel, the one I wasn't thinking about anymore, the one that had already been tested before. But suddenly, that's where the movement was happening. The views were appearing there, the activity was building there, and the newest upload was still quiet. Now that's interesting, because most creators are told something very simple. Upload a video, and YouTube tests that upload. The system looks at the title, the thumbnail, the topic, and then it shows the video to a small group of viewers. That's the basic story most creators hear. But that isn't what this graph is showing. This graph shows something different. It shows the system paying attention, just not where we expected it. And that raised a new question. If YouTube wasn't testing the new upload, what exactly was it testing? When you first start uploading, every video feels like a result. You post it, you watch the numbers, and you decide if it worked. But after enough uploads, you start realizing something different. The upload is only the beginning of the experiment. So I checked something else, another channel, a channel where a lot more experience have already happened. A channel with hundreds of uploads, hundreds of videos, hundreds of tests. I call that channel The Lab. My other art channel, Hand Drawn Project. Because that's where most of my experiments have taken place. That's the channel where patterns start to become visible, where you begin to see how the system behaves over time. So I opened the real-time performance screen on the lab, and what I saw there looked very familiar. One video was being tested, and several others were barely moving. Different videos, different channel, but the same behavior. One idea getting attention, other uploads staying quiet. Now the mystery becomes more interesting, because when the same pattern appears in two different places, it probably isn't random. It probably means the system is doing something intentional, something systematic, something that follows a rule we don't fully understand yet. There's something interesting about working on a platform like this. You're always experimenting, but you're also learning how to observe which signals matter, which ones don't, and which ones are just noise in the data. That takes time. At this point, most creators assume something simple. Maybe the new upload just wasn't good enough. Maybe the algorithm didn't like it. Maybe the topic didn't land. Maybe the thumbnail didn't work. Those explanations are easy. They're simple, and sometimes they're even correct. But the more I watched these graphs, the more something else became clear. The system wasn't behaving like a chronological feed. It wasn't just testing the newest thing that appeared. It was doing something else. Something a little more complicated. YouTube doesn't seem to be testing uploads. It's testing ideas. And that changes how we think about everything. Because if the system is testing ideas, then the newest video isn't always the most important one. Sometimes the system goes back. Sometimes it probes older videos again. Sometimes it revisits a topic. And when that happens, the activity can show up in places we didn't expect.
The strange thing about YouTube is that it rarely explains itself. It doesn't tell you what it's testing or why. It just leaves traces in the analytics. And if you watch carefully, those traces start forming patterns.
When a video performs well, YouTube doesn't just test that upload once. It keeps probing the idea behind that video, which means the system might do something like this. Test one video, then test another video on the same topic, and then return to the first one again. Then test a third one, not because those videos are newer, but because the idea behind them is showing signs of life. Viewers are responding, viewers are watching, viewers are clicking. And when that happens, the system becomes curious. It starts asking questions. It starts exploring, which means the testing doesn't always stay attached to the newest upload. Sometimes the system explores older parts of the channel. Sometimes it wakes up videos that were quiet for a while. And that's exactly what this graph is showing. The system isn't pushing the newest video, it's probing the idea that seems to be working. And that leads to a different question entirely. Not, did my upload work? But instead, which idea is YouTube exploring right now?
YouTube has a way of changing how you think about publishing. When you start, every video feels like a result. You upload it, and you expect the answer right away. Did it work, or didn't it? But the longer you watch the analytics, the more it feels like each upload is just the start of an experiment. And the real story is what the system does afterward.
If YouTube is testing ideas instead of uploads, then every channel becomes something different. Not a publishing schedule, not a list of videos, but a series of experiments. Each upload becomes a data point. Each topic becomes a signal. Some ideas will barely move, some will get small probes, and once in a while, one idea will start getting tested again and again. The system pushes a little, then it waits, then it pushes again, until it starts to understand who cares about that idea. And once the system understands that, distribution can expand quickly, but the process of getting there is messy. It doesn't always follow a straight line. Once you start noticing this pattern, you begin to see it everywhere. Older videos getting sudden activity, new uploads sitting quietly for a while, and then waking up days later or weeks later. Sometimes the system waits, sometimes it circles back, sometimes it revisits an idea when new viewers appear. Because the system isn't chronological, it's experimental. It's constantly asking one question: which idea makes viewers stop scrolling? Which idea makes people watch? Which idea makes people come back? And until the system finds that answer, the experiments continue. So what should a creator actually do with this? It changes the question we ask. Instead of asking, did my upload work? We might start asking, which idea is YouTube exploring right now? Because the upload is only the beginning. The real story shows up in the tests that follow. The movement, the patterns, the small signals that appear across the channel. And sometimes, the most interesting tests aren't on the newest video at all. Sometimes the most interesting signals show up somewhere else, somewhere older, somewhere unexpected, and those moments are worth paying attention to. This is why I started documenting these experiments, because the platform doesn't explain what it's doing. It doesn't tell you when it's testing or what it's testing. It doesn't tell you why a video moves or why another one stays quiet. It just leaves signals, numbers, graphs, patterns that appear slowly over time. And those signals are easy to miss unless you start watching carefully, unless you start observing, unless you start treating the channel like a laboratory. So this channel is simply a notebook, a place to record what happens when we upload and what the system does afterward. Because sometimes the algorithm tells a story if you slow down enough to read it. The upload starts the experiment, but the tests that follow, that's where the real answers hide. This is YouTube Field Notes.